Ramyam Bahwa Maradrumai Kujad Vihangamitunam Gayam Mata Madhuvratam Grihodyanam Kusumitai. Anybody? Nobody. Ramyam Bahwa Maradrumai Anybody else would like to try their luck at this? Okay. Griha Udyanam, the household garden. Kusumitai, with flowers and fruits. Ramyam, beautiful. Bahu Amara Drumai, with many celestial trees. Kujat, singing. Vihanga, of birds. Mitunam, with pairs. Gayat, humming. Mata, intoxicated. Madhuvratam, with bees. So Srila Prabhupada translates this without a purport. The compound of a main household was surrounded by beautiful gardens with sweet, fragrant flowers and many trees which produced fresh fruit and were tall and beautiful. The attraction of such gardens was that singing birds would sit on the trees, and their chanting voices, as well as the humming sound of the bees, made the whole atmosphere as pleasing as possible. So we go into the next verse. Yatra pravishtam atmanam vibhudanuchara jagu vapyam utpalagandhinyam kardameno palalitam. When Devahuti would enter that lovely garden to take her bath in the pond filled with lotus flowers, the associates of the denizens of heaven, the Gandharvas, would sing about Kardama's glorious household life. Her great husband Kardama gave her all protection at all times. Purport. The ideal husband and wife relationship is very nicely described in this statement. Kardama Muni gave Devahuti all sorts of comforts in his duty as a husband, but he was not at all attached to his wife. As soon as his son Kapiladev was grown up, Kardama at once left all family connection. Similarly, Devahuti was the daughter of a great king, Swayambhuva Manu, and was qualified and beautiful, but she was completely dependent on the protection of her husband. According to Manu, women, the first sex, should not have independence at any stage of life. In childhood, a woman must be under the protection of the parents. In youth, she must be under the protection of her husband. And in old age, she must be under the protection of her own grown children. Devahuti demonstrated all these statements in the Manu Samhita in her life. As a child, she was dependent on her father. Later, she was dependent on her husband, in spite of her opulence, and she was later on dependent on her son, Kapiladev. Om Agyana Timiram Yasya Gyananjana Sarakaya Chakshurimuditam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Nangayate Kirim Yat Kipatam Ham Vande Shri Gurum Dinatranam Paramanam Namadavam Shri Chaitanya Mishwaram. So here, a very chaste, exalted lady's life is described first, and the previous verse, well, actually for quite a few verses, the opulence was described, that they didn't even need light because the household was illuminated by jewels and the sun reflecting marble walls and ponds and lotus flowers, and everything was beautiful, fragrant flowers, trees. Not like nowadays that you walk anywhere and there are lots of trees, but they don't produce anything. They don't produce fruits. They don't produce flowers. And when they do, there is no fragrance in the flowers. And some, they don't give any even shade. They're just so squalid. So this is the opulence of Kali Yuga, that you can get plastic, and nature is backwards. People don't care. There is a town in North Brazil, the capital of the state of Pará, Belém, where there is the most impacted windshields on cars in any city, because when it's mango season, the streets are lined with mango trees, and they fly all over the place and break windshields. That's the opulence of that city. And I remember I basically I did my Bhakta program in North Brazil, in another town called Recife, a state of I forgot what the state is. Anyway, my first no, that's north of Bahia. Wow, it's been too long. So the house that the devotees had, the temple, was a rented property, which now I heard is a Mormon temple or something like that. They cut down all the trees. It used to be the house of a former governor of the state, and had 40 mango trees. They were very tall, 40, 50 feet tall. There were 7 different varieties. There were elephant cashew trees, cinnamon trees, jackfruit trees, breadfruit trees, jambo, pitanga, chirimoya, guavas, coconuts. The tulsi trees that were planted were about 6.5, 7 feet tall. It was wonderful, and the weather was ideal. It was about 78 degrees all year round, and it would rain early in the morning before Mangalarti, just a mist, very tropical kind of shower, very, very fine, just to nurture the earth and douse the trees with a little bit of moisture. It was wonderful. And the flowers had actually real fragrance. For the deities, we used to just walk around the neighborhood chanting japa and just pluck flowers from everywhere. They would grow everywhere, just beautiful flowers. The garlands were very exotic, all with wild tropical flowers. That's opulence. That's actually opulence. Not that you own a garage with 20 exotic cars, just different types of two-time engines propelled by raping the earth, taking the petroleum out and refining it in horrible places under horrible conditions. So this is opulence, birds singing and bees humming. That's a beautiful sound. Actually, we experienced that before coming here. We lived in Santa Barbara, and sometimes I will go and sit outside on a lounge chair and read under a tree, not a very good tree, actually a poisonous one called bottlebrush that produces some red flowers. But there were bees. There were hundreds of bees. Just they're very fond of this tree. So as I was reading, I could hear the humming of bees all over, and also there were at least a dozen hummingbirds nested on that tree. So that's opulence. That's beautiful. That's what nature is producing. So this type of incentives, to develop better qualities, human qualities, not subhuman qualities, not these qualities of being loud and proud and obnoxious. This This is not opulence. Opulence is to have saintly people in a proper atmosphere which is propitious for the development of a higher consciousness. And this is what Devahuti had, provided by her husband. Her husband was a very powerful mystic yogi, great devotee, and he was not attached to it, but he knew it was his duty to procure for his family life. So he gave Devahuti the best of everything. So she had no need to say, "You never buy me anything," to her husband. He just manifested this beautiful environment for her to grow up. And on top of that, she gave her a son who was an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's a pretty good. I would say he bats 1,000, as a husband. Scores very highly. If you can provide your wife with a flying mansion, provided, with everything, and you get God to be your son. That's a pretty good plan right there if you can do it. And even though he wasn't attached to, this is a kind of a controversial topic, because if you household life, grihastha, the grihastha ashram, is in order to do your duty properly, you have to actually become attached, which is kind of contrary to our philosophy, and that you should be detached because you're eventually going to get old and get sick and die. So what's the point of attaching yourself to anything? But if you don't do your duty as a householder, if you are a brahmachari with a wife, then that is not going to be a very good environment for either of you. You'll be frustrated because you just want to read scripture and practice austerities, and your wife is not going to be very happy because she may be attached to you, but you're not attached to her. So this is how to solve that quandary. It's doing it like Karnama Muni. That first of all, your wife has to be a devotee, and not just a regular devotee. Very intelligent, very advanced, very detached. You could see, if you read all the way to the end of this chapter, that Devahuti eventually didn't care. Just detached herself from all the opulences that surrounded her, and from her own body, from the comforts of her own body. I mean, it's difficult. We can't even spend 45 minutes during Bhāgavatam class without getting uncomfortable and trying to find a better position to sit on, and thinking, maybe I should be doing something else, or I'm hungry, or this or that. So Devahuti actually just ended her life in the best possible way, completely absorbed in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And it says, Prabhupada explains, Bhāgavatam and Prabhupada explained later on, that she was very attached. She was detached from everything except for her son, which is a bad thing if your son is not God. But in her case, that was a good thing. She was very attached to Kapila Dev. Prabhupada says that there's a planet where Kapila Dev is worshipped by sages, where you go after attaining perfection. And Kapila Dev is still around. That's what Prabhupada said. Still around in the confluence of the Ganges and the ocean, in the Bay of Bengal. There's a temple there, and he's being worshipped. It's not manifested to the ordinary eye, but Kapila Devi is there. There is an impostor, as Prabhupada says, impostor named Kapila, that preached a different philosophy, that took advantage of the name. The brand was famous, so he just ran with it. But it's not the same. And another point here, first of all, Devahuti was no. They used to cultivate breeding. among humans. This is, it's good among dogs, it's good for horses, but it's not good for humans. Breeding is essential, that the quality of the families should be superb, that you don't mix. Prabhu Maharaj explains about mixed classes, that this is what Kali Yuga is. Everybody's mixed and nobody has any good qualities because they're all, you're all messed up. You have poor training as well. But Devahuti was the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. That means she was related to Dhruva Maharaj, because Dhruva Maharaj's grandfather was Swayambhuva Manu. I think Uttanapad's father or grandfather was Swayambhuva Manu. And she was protected from the very beginning by her father, Swayambhuva Manu, one of the rulers of the universe, and then by Karnava Muni, her husband, saintly husband, and then by Kapila Dev. But eventually Kapila Dev also left. This is common among our literature, that the saintly people will leave things behind and go. It's most exemplified by Sukadeva Goswami, who first of all didn't want to show up. And then he was born from an incarnation of God at Vyasadeva, and didn't want to come out of the womb unless he had a full assurance that he would not be trapped by Maya. So even though his father was an incarnation of God and told him, don't worry, he didn't believe him. He said, no, I need further assurance. This is not good enough. I'm fine here. Although according to the description of the Vedas, being in the womb is not comfortable. Just imagine you're in one of those Indian metal trunks for 9 months. It will be quite uncomfortable. So 10 months actually, technically. So by Sukadeva Goswami was not at all bothered by his comfort or situation. He was fine. He was absorbed in meditation, and Vyasadeva had to convince the boss, Krishna himself, to come and talk to him and say, "Come on, kid. It's been 16 years. Plus his mom had to carry him for 16 years. That those of you who are mothers had children, that 9 months, 10 months carrying something in your belly, even food, is quite uncomfortable. What to speak of 16 years carrying a grown kid. So somehow Sukadeva Goswami said, okay, I'll come out because you promised me that I won't be affected by Maya. But he didn't stick around to do the normal routine of playing Gugu Dada and playing with toys and getting educated and all that stuff. He left. He didn't get dressed. He didn't say goodbye. He just walked away. Just immediately grew into a body of a 16-year-old and walked away. So this is our family tradition. We basically walk away from things eventually and seek the ultimate realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because our life is not really here. This is like a Greyhound bus stop for us, where you come, buy a snack, use the bathroom and get the hell out. Just take the next bus. You need to get out. This is not a comfortable place, and we can see it more and more. Actually, as Kali Yuga has advanced quite a bit in the last few years. More cataclysms, more earthquakes than ever, more terror than ever, more fires, entire forest fires. We lived and we used to live in an area where 1 year we had 4 major fires that burned over just about 500,000 acres. And we could see the fire. It's not like, we heard about it no, our car will be completely covered in ashes. You had to close the windows for days. You couldn't breathe the air. And then because of a burning of the trees, there will be, when the rain came, there was nowhere for, the roots were burned, and actually when the trees burn, they produce some oil, like a sap, and they cover the ground with it. So when there is a rain, all which is boulders and rocks and so on, they're no longer attached. There's no trees to stop them. So it becomes very slippery, and so the freeway between Santa Barbara and Los Angeles was closed for 3 weeks. We were stuck in Los Angeles, and boulders ran down from a hill to the freeway, killing almost 25 people in their houses. I mean, I'm talking about boulders that destroy a house. That was the size. So this is the world that we live in. Not a comfortable place. Now a little virus, a thing that you can't see with the naked eye, that is tossing people like a wrestler here and there, making them invalids for life or killing them. This is the world where one thing comes after another to discourage you from making a permanent home. So we have to look elsewhere for a home in the spiritual world where we belong. We actually belong. We are never going to be happy here. We may be happy if we become fully Krishna conscious, but otherwise, not a chance. Zero. Your chances are zero. And mortality continues to be 100%. So, that even if you're kind of happy here, in your illusion and idiocy, because without Krishna consciousness, eventually death is going to come and slap you in the face and take you elsewhere, and you're not going to even remember, how happy you were. So this is a bad business, really bad business. So it's glorious to see Devahuti totally detached from this world, even though she had the best of everything, all the silks and all the cotton and all the linen and all the furniture and all the marble and all the jewels and everything else, whatever a person can dream of material opulence. She had it all, and she left it behind. The other day, Samyavas Prabhu was talking about giving up stuff. Like the example of Dhruva Maharaj, that he thought looking for a kingdom larger than anyone in his family, and we know in his family Swayambhuva Manu was in his family, so he kind of had shares in the universe, so that was pretty opulent. And his great-grandfather, Lord Brahma, who basically, just is the overall manager, he wanted a bigger kingdom than that, which could not be accomplished in the material world. Only on the Dhruva Loka, the star, the pole star, was an appropriate kingdom for him, because it's a spiritual planet within the material world. But he still didn't want it, but still Krishna wanted to fulfill his desire. As Narayan appeared in front of Dhruva, Dhruva was ashamed and embarrassed. Krishna said, "What, you call me, you practice all these austerities, you chanted the Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya for the last 6 months, you didn't stop eating, you stopped breathing, I'm here, what do you want?" And he said, "I was looking for broken pieces of glass, and you're a diamond." And Krishna said, "That's nice, but you wanted something." Well, what was that? You wanted a kingdom or something like that? So he gave him a kingdom. Krishna fulfilled both his material and spiritual desires. In the Gita, Krishna says that he actually, it's not like he eliminates whatever desires you have and replaces them with something else. He actually will fulfill your desires, but in a way that is beneficial, because most of the time the desires that we have are not beneficial to us. We want this, we want that, but we are not thinking of the consequences. So in this particular case, Devahuti just wanted her son, but her son happened to be the personality of God. So that was a good thing. That was a very good thing. Yeah, we wish we had this kind of fortune. Like mothers meditate on their sons and daughters all the time, just out of that protective nature and attachment, but they get very little benefit from, John and Jane. But they will get benefit if their son was Kapiladev or any other incarnation of the personality of Godhead. And another example I was thinking of was Sanatana Goswami having a touchstone and just threw it in a discarded pile because there was nothing in this world that he wanted, even though he could get anything. He just didn't have any interest. He had something bigger. He had something better. He didn't need any further help. And even Pundarika Vidyanidhi and Gaura-lila, who Gadadhar Pandit himself being Radharani, misidentified, because Pundarika Vidyanidhi had beautiful long oily hair and silk clothes and bolster pillows and opulence and manicure, pedicure, the whole thing. So when Gadadhar Pandit saw him, he thought, "Oh wow, why have I been brought to see this person? He looks like a materialist," but he wasn't. And as soon as a Bhāgavatam verse was recited, he went into conniptions, spiritual ecstasy. Of course, there was a special lila there, because King Vrishabhanu, the father of Srimati Radharani, was Pundarika Vidyanidhi, and Gadadhar Pandit was Radharani. So Gadadhar Pandit ended up taking Diksha from Pundarika Vidyanidhi. So we cannot judge by the appearances. Somebody may look may have a rough look and maybe poverty-stricken, maybe somewhat incoherent, but may have a lot of spiritual insight. And someone else may be displaying this, all sorts of opulences, but internally may be completely detached. So you can never tell. So we should be. That's why we have to use the Trinadapi Sunichana. We have to be humble and tolerant and just consider everybody better than us. Because everybody is better than us. And we may not have this Mahabhagavata mentality right now, but we should practice, as eventually we may get it. So we should see everyone as better. As far as the point of women not having any independence, well, this is certainly a sore subject right now in the 21st century in North America, where women want and have obtained equal rights for the most part. But what have they gained? They have gained the right of having to work like their donkey-like husbands. And now they have to do, heavy lifting, and some Mexican lady without education is raising your kids, so your kids are going to be ignorant and bilingual, both. And you see your kids at night and you feed them with frozen dinners? Is this advancement? Is this really what women want? The first sex is naturally more fearful. Women are naturally more fearful. I mean, how many men you find that they're afraid of spiders? It's not so many, I would think. But among women, it's probably in the 90% and higher, afraid of spiders and the dark, and they lock the doors and windows at all times. Men are not even aware that the doors and the windows should be locked. They're naturally different. So based on this natural physio-psychological makeup that one comes with, well, you should use it to your advantage. Why pretend that you're a tough girl? There are women that they are like men in that respect. They like to be they want to be soldiers, and they want to be fighters, and they don't want to have kids. They just want to be independent. They don't want anybody to tell them anything, and so on. That's okay. They have that nature. But in general, and the Bhāgavatam was spoken 5,000 years ago, so women were quite different. Also, Srila Prabhupada came from a culture from how the world was in Bengal 150 years ago, and so on. So that's how they. What's that noise? Okay. It's a different world. It's a different world nowadays. So we have to adapt, because what we are here for is to propagate the culture of Krishna consciousness, not the details, not the localisms, not the superstition, not the because what is the difference between Krishna consciousness and Hinduism? Hinduism is Krishna consciousness without the missionary spirit, without preaching. That's what Hinduism is, and full of superstition and folklore and so on. So let's just cut down to the basics, that we are all part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we may be raised in different cultures with different tools at our disposal to make advancement, and it may be in one culture or another, but you have to find that the result of your endeavor is the same. So if you are speaking very in lofty ways about your love of God, but you don't show the symptoms and the activities of someone who is in love with God, then obviously either your method is bad, or you're not applying it correctly, or your philosophy is wrong. So in Krishna consciousness, we know that if you apply it properly, it works. It works every time. Anybody, from any background, and there is no problem. There is no lack of... Krishna, of course, sends a lot of, how would he say, extra weight our way. So if you go to the gym and there is people that represent really heavy weight that you eventually will have to lift somehow or other. So this is all exercise, spiritual exercise. That we have different personalities, and the dynamics of relationships are sometimes strained, sometimes difficult. But this is all good spiritual exercise, because you have to rise above it. You have to develop the qualities of a devotee. In that respect, comes the class that yesterday was given by your hubby, Srimad Prabhu, and he quoted a verse from Bhāgavatam, Yashasti Bhaktir Bhagavatya Kinchana Sarvai Gunai Satra Samasati Sura Haravaktasya Kutu Mahatguna Manoratina Sati Davatu Vahi. So this verse is ordinarily quoted to demonstrate that the devotees are better than everybody else. This is completely out of context. And not only that, is a poor interpretation of the translation. Because even though the translation says, all the demigods and their exalted qualities such as religion, knowledge, and renunciation become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. On the other hand, a person devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities, even if he is adept at the practice of mystic yoga or the honest endeavor of maintaining his family and relatives. He must be driven by his own mental speculations and must engage in the service of the Lord's external energy. How can there be any good qualities in such a man? So, in this particular verse, in the synonyms, Mahaguna does not literally mean good qualities, as it is translated. It means qualities of the great souls. So it's talking about Bhāgavatam. It's talking about pure devotees. And thus refers to the first line, one who has pure devotion for the Lord. So one not devoted to Hari cannot have the qualities of the great soul, the pure devotees. So that means all of us who are not pure devotees are in the same category. Not that we are devotees so we are better than everybody else, and karmis and jnanis and fruitive workers in general of the world are just the downtrodden and the bad ones, and we are better. No matter, if you're just a devotee, you're naturally better. No, this means that compared to the pure devotees, the majority, almost the totality of the world, has no good qualities compared to the pure devotees. So let's not use this as a crutch to say we are better and we're chanting and we are offering our food and we are doing japa and doing welfare work for the benefit of humanity. No, this is far from being a pure devotee. When you reach that platform of pure devotional service, then you can talk about it. Yeah, then you can ring the bell. You have arrived. But before that, let's not say we are better and see someone who has, for some reason, because of their sukriti or lack of sukriti, they haven't achieved the good fortune of being chanting Hare Krishna at this point in their life. They'll say, well, because they're not chanting Hare Krishna, they don't have any good qualities. Because many people have much better qualities than we are, and they're not chanting Hare Krishna. And so we are not pure devotees. Until we become pure devotees, we cannot really say devotees are better than everybody else. From the Sanskrit, we can derive that only compared to the pure devotees, everybody else is more or less on the same platform that they should aspire. And when you achieve that platform, when you become a pure devotee, then at that point you don't see yourself as better than anybody else. So to say that devotees are better than everybody else is exactly the opposite of becoming a pure devotee. Because the Mahabhagavatas have the vision that everybody's engaged in Krishna service but me. So I just wanted to end with that, just to give you some food for thought for the day. We have a few minutes for questions, comments, realizations, and severe chastisement if it is available. I'll get it later from my wife.
With the atmosphere that is present in Kali Yuga, as opposed to this beautiful atmosphere you were describing, how you have a lot of experience in this, how to present this beautiful atmosphere to conditioned souls that are not really interested what did you experience in preaching to people, young people, about Krishna consciousness to help them become attracted to Krishna consciousness, despite their attachment to, the plastic life?
Well, the formulaic answer to that is param drishtva nivartate. You need a higher taste in order to give up the lower taste. But if this is a little theoretical. If you have a better life than they do, if you have a higher level of happiness than they do, you have to bring them up. So it is your duty to show them by example that, it's great what you do, but it's not going anywhere. That by example will work a lot better than if you try to convince them that their life is miserable and so on. We always say that preaching in Santa Barbara was very difficult because there is a high level of material happiness there. You tell someone life is miserable and they say, excuse me, gotta go surfing. I'll talk to you later. I'll have some organic fruit and go surfing, and then I'll see you later. I go to my house in the hills and drive my Tesla. They have no conception of this. Okay, you're presenting that there's a happy life. First of all, you have to become convinced yourself. You have to be happy from the inside out, not like just showing that you can be happy. And if you have something, it will spread to others. If you're in love with Krishna, then this will show, and he will see the world differently. Like if someone is in love, they can go anywhere. They can go to a dumpster and be happy and see it as wonderful, most wonderful. But do you remember when we met at the dumpster? It's like a romantic instance. So because there is love, and so if you're in love with Krishna, then any place is nice. Even Naraka, even hell, doesn't matter. You're in love with Krishna. Like Prahlad Maharaj, he didn't care about his father trying to kill him. Krishna had to intervene. Krishna had to protect him. Poison and trampling of elephants and thrown from a cliff. Krishna made him land like it's in a soft cushion. Just because Prahlad didn't care. He was in love, so he was not even there. He's fine. It's Krishna's plan. Krishna's protecting me, and his father gave him poison, and he offered it because he didn't know it was poison. You're not supposed to offer poison to Krishna, but he didn't know, so he offered it, and then Krishna accepted it. He had no choice. By the love of Prahlad, he had to accept the poison and turn it into nectar. So that's why Prahlad didn't die. So when we are imbued with these qualities, at least a tiny fraction, a fragment of love of Krishna, he will show. And as I thank you for asking that question, particularly you who are imbued with so many good qualities. People see you and they want to become Krishna conscious. They automatically, they say, because they can see you have something they don't have. All this technology, all this stuff is short-lived. There will be something, there will be something in the future that will replace all this technology. People may start reading books again, who knows? But you have something that outlasts all the changes in the material world, because this world is constantly whirling around and changing things. But the constant thing is your attachment to Krishna. That is the only thing you have, really. Everything else will go. This is the only thing that will save you, your attachment to Krishna, how attached you are. So if you're attached to Krishna, it will be like a fly trap. It will just make people stick to you and stick to Krishna. So you teach us how. let us enter this mysterious world of love of Krishna. We only hear about it from scripture and sadhus. Anything else? Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. I was reflecting on your comment that I was extrapolating it to a kind of broader context. You're speaking that Grahastha, one who's a transcendentalist, is meant to not be attached, and yet that phase of life requires being attached. It's natural. I don't know if you use that word, but it's part of the circumstance. So I was thinking about how in general we may be asked to do things that we're really not interested in at the time, but at the same time we have a duty to perform, and it's relevant to our Krishna consciousness. So I was, for example, you're on books, and you have to talk to somebody, and you have to pretend like you care about the small talk that they're giving to you about the minutiae of their material life, because there's a goal, and it's part of Krishna's service. And you really don't care about the nonsense they're saying, but if you told them that, it would be a problem. And there's so many other contexts I could think of that this kind of thing comes up, where actually you're meant to show that you're attached, although you're not. I just wondered, if you can elaborate on how to do that, what that means, and what your realizations are. It could be in the context of the Grahastha ashram or not, but just in general, specifically. In general, I was thinking about how this manifests in our life as devotees. We have this long range goal, but in order to not be apparently aloof to everything, we have to play our parts. So what does that look like? How do we do that?
Well, for the majority of people with whom I include myself, this is not a pastime. This is not the Grahastha Lila. This is a time that this is the school that you chose to get your education. So the attachment is real. It's not like you're detached, but you're playing around, like, yes, I am totally detached. I'm just going through this because it's Vedic, or because I have to, because it's service to my guru. There is an age. Like Prabhupada gave sannyas to very young disciples. Actually, Tamal Krishna Maharaj said that we should all remain married, but Prabhupada was in a hurry and he needed some help. He needed some, to fill some spots that were not available, because sannyas is really for people who are over 60. It's not for younger. It's very rare that you find someone who comes with that psychological makeup and punya, that actually they can be detached and celibate and absorbed in Krishna consciousness from an early age. So I would say, yes, in order to perform your duty properly as a householder, you have to be attached. You have to show attachment. But it's not an artificial imposition for most of us. You actually become attached. You wanna expand. You wanna grow roots. You wanna enjoy the material world. But then it naturally goes away. Starts to fade out. Like sex desire. When you're young, you're haunted by sex desire because of your body, your hormones, and of course, stimulation of the material. The material society subjects people to is awful. It makes it even worse, but it's natural. And when you get older, it kind of becomes secondary. Your body doesn't want it anymore. It's not like you become detached. It's just you have no use for it. And there are many other things that happen with age, just naturally. Now, you cannot pretend to be a householder and not be one. Because your wife is not stupid. She will know if you're actually attached and diligent, or just your guru told you to do that and you do it begrudgingly and huffing and puffing and in a bitter way, but you have to pretend. Also, when you transport it to book distribution, something that I do have plenty of experience, you have to be genuinely interested in the person. Yeah, what they may be saying may be nonsense and small talk and totally irrelevant, but you have to show genuine interest, not in what they are promoting or propagating or explaining to you at the time, but in the person, in the soul. This is a lost brother that is somehow or other waking up from some fever that made him completely inebriated and intoxicated, and is just, you have to just let him or let her just go through that. Because if you're just waiting for the spot, it's just when people talk to you, you just hear. All you hear is, okay, I'm getting closer to my spot where I speak. I'm not hearing anything what they're saying. Then they will perceive that. You have to be sincere in your approach to anything you do. So when people talk to you, just be personal. This is a personal religion. Krishna is listening to your japa. Don't you think he has better things to do? And is your japa that attractive and interesting that he has to just sit for 2 hours listening to you, mumble, whatever you say? No, but he does it because he loves you. So out of love, just sit with your long lost brother and listen to their tale of woe until you can actually see that there is a chance for me to help here, bring him back. And Krishna will give you that happiness. And gives you insight. Like sometimes, I don't know, it probably happens to you that you're talking to someone about Krishna consciousness and you say things that come out of you you had no idea you had them in you. Because you didn't. Krishna just gave them to you. You became a conduit, and good for you. Krishna just gave you a bunch of stuff. It came out of your mouth. It could have been out of someone else's mouth. So Krishna can speak through a fool and a drunkard and anybody else, a materialist. Krishna can give you very good advice and can preach philosophy better than you can, if Krishna chooses to do so. So you have to always try to see where, Krishna is everywhere. So what does that mean, that he's everywhere? Are we Hiranyakashipu, that we believe Krishna is not within a pillar? Are we Hiranyakashipu that believe that Krishna conscious philosophy or Krishna could not speak through the mouth of all living entities? No. Krishna can, and he will if you have the eyes and you have the ears to do that. So your sincerity doesn't depend on you, it depends on how you see the world. And if you see that everybody is Krishna conscious to some extent, because Krishna is acting through everybody, either through Maya or through Mahamaya or Yoga Maya, then you'll be Krishna conscious, even though you live in the world of Maya. So, this being a householder, being a book distributor, being a cook, being a truck driver, it doesn't matter. You can see Krishna everywhere if you have the right focus. So there is no, again, as I was quoting the verse, that we are better than everybody else. We are just waiting for a moment to deliver our message, and anybody else's message doesn't matter. No. Pay attention. Krishna is talking to you at all times through different means. You just have to identify it. Anything else? You bet.
My question was, you mentioned what is the difference between Hinduism and Krishna consciousness, and Krishna consciousness is essentially a culture minus the mythologies and the traditions.
Yeah.
Got that correctly? So, how far did Srila Prabhupada, what extent did he have to go to create something new that was a blend of Hindu and Indian traditions, just like subjugating different ideas and concepts like protecting women? It's a very Eastern idea. We don't really hear about that very much in the West. How far did Srila Prabhupada have to go to create something new in Krishna consciousness and his movement, but stick to Indian traditions and Hindu roots?
Well, there are good things about India, and there are bad things about India. We actually, I don't know if this is true for everybody, but usually the food you like is the food you grew up with. You know, you may adapt it. Now you adapt it to the vegan or vegetarian or, tradition. But you grew up with in a certain milieu, with a certain culture, and the music you're attracted to is the music you listened when you were young. And the style of music and the style of clothing and the style of everything comes, from an environment. So Prabhupada was born in 1896 in Calcutta, West Bengal. So he grew up in a certain structure, a cultural structure, that he transported to America together with eternal Krishna consciousness. But he applied it to his own culture, as anybody should, as anybody would. But when Prabhupada saw that a certain method didn't work, he just changed it. He just modified it. And even Prabhupada tried to start the League of Devotees in Allahabad and, way before he came to America. And when he came to America and started the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, he didn't apply the same principles, some of them, but he knew that wasn't going to work. And the fact that he crossed the ocean, that was like a no way. You can't cross the ocean. You lose your spiritual potency, and you can't initiate women. You can't give Brahman to women. You can't give Brahman to these boys that came from meat-eating families. Prabhupada just changed that. And, so there are things that are universal teachings and there are things that are details. And Prabhupada constantly changed the details. He allowed the devotees to distribute books wearing pants and a wig because it was more effective, because people couldn't relate to the monk-like attires. And but the thing is, he had all the temples cooking, dal and rice and sabji and chapatis because that's what he grew up with. It's not like, the ultimate Vedic food is dal, rice, sabji, and chapatis. Krishna eats all sorts of stuff. Krishna eats whatever people offer with devotion, according to the, proper ingredients. So all this stuff that we have to think, are we sacrificing the main principle? No, they are details. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Really, what is, there is good things about India and there are awful things about India. There's like open sewers and women are mistreated and corruption and bribery. Why didn't Prabhupada bring that too? Because it's awful. Not everything from India is good and everything from the West is bad. Prabhupada said he wanted to combine the lame man and the blind man. So the blind man will go on the shoulders of the lame man. No, the lame man will go on the shoulders of the blind man. That's the east and west. One is lame because of material deprivation and poverty, and one is blind because of a lack of spiritual insight. So he wanted to combine the two. So it's not like, we are Indians, preaching Hinduism or Indian lifestyle. We have nothing to do with that. What do you grow up with, burgers and fries, so, make veggie burgers and baked potatoes and offer them to Krishna. It's not like he will turn them down because, it wasn't dal with enough chilies to kill an army. It has nothing to do with localisms. So we have to be surgically excise all these details that are useless for spreading Krishna consciousness, because the main principle is still the same. Become Krishna conscious and give it to others. Because if you don't give it to others, it won't spread on you either. If you don't spread it, it won't spread on you. It will be your gangrenous Krishna consciousness that eventually will be cut off from you. On that sweet I think I abused my time here on the soapbox. So, thank you very much. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.